Hi, welcome back to the Four Storytellers. We're scratching deeper into the fabric of our lives to generate diverse stories and unique characters using our wildly individual and distinct voices. In this episode, we're going to be discussing rookie mistakes. Whether you have written as many novels as Stephen King or Nora Roberts combined, or you're a total amateur like myself, you probably have and will make these mistakes. Now, we're not talking about grammar. No, we're talking about writing errors that are kind of hard to catch or a lack of preparation for your type of storytelling. I would like to welcome back Nancy J., Del Shores, and James Grady, who are going to help me discuss our personal mistakes and how we're going to fix them.
And who are you?
Oh, sorry. I am Sydney Gilder.
We need to know. I just need to be reminded, every now and then. I'm
Every once
getting
in a
old.
while. You always forget me, every time. So with rookie mistakes, we're not just going to be talking about novel writing or book writing rookie mistakes. Del has a very extensive and talented background in playwriting, as well as Nancy with journalism, and James has written a book or 20. And so they all have different ideas of what rookie mistakes means when it comes to storytelling. So to kick us off today, how about we talk about the biggest rookie mistake that we have made in our personal journeys with writing? If there are any consequences, please share. Please share.
Who's going to go? I have one. I have one that can. I always say the first thing that comes to your mind. When I was a senior at Baylor, which was 122 years ago, I decided I was going to write a screenplay. So I had a friend who had moved out to Los Angeles, and I said, "Well, this was before the internet, where you could search and get a screenplay anywhere." And one of the things I teach now is you don't have to go to school to learn formatting. Just read a play. Just read a screenplay. Just find the medium that you want to write in. Look at a book or look at a sitcom. So I said, will you send me a screenplay? And so she sent me an episode of Benson. Now, there is a very different format in writing sitcoms and film. And so it was called Higher Education, and I thought I needed every detail of my life and all my friends in this, and it was about 400 pages because sitcom formatting is about half the spacing. I mean, it's double spaced everything. So anyway, that for me that was the big one that I learned. Okay, gotta get the specific medium I'm writing in.
And what do you use now? What's the program you use now?
I use Final Draft. And if anyone ever recommends anything else to me, I just say, no. I am too old to learn any other program. I am fluent in Final Draft.
How long have you had Final Draft?
I would say until I first started writing for television and film, and I got my first deal at Warner Brothers in 1990, and they had Final Draft in the computers there, and that's where I learned it. Now with my plays, I just format them myself in Word.
Yeah.
Because it's a very different formula. But that Final Draft does have a playwriting. But again, I do not want to get used to anything new. I got my shit down.
Can't teach an old dog new tricks, not even computer ones. I guess not. But so with Samuel French, they make copies of your plays. Do they format it?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
They absolutely do. And what's great about I use their format, so it makes it kind of easy. And ironically, I got the galleys for my new play today, which it's always kind of exciting. So my 9th play to be published with Samuel French, and it's really Concord now. Concord bought them, but Samuel French, and so yeah, they do it all, and then you go through, and there are always a lot of mistakes, y'all. Don't think that they don't make mistakes.
Is there a book format?
Or just
James,
a special book? I mean, James, is there a format for books that so many words per page, or to keep the the sides straight or something?
No. I mean, different publishers use different styles for different books. If you're James Joyce, your book's going to look fundamentally different than if you're Ayn Rand, just because of the way your sentences are written.
Yeah.
So it's much more flexible and much more fluid. then
open up your 8th grade copy of To Kill a Mockingbird and then open up like, a Twilight book. The formatting, and it's also, our day and age, the way that we print books now are very different. Normally, if you have an older book, especially if they're printing it now based on an older version of it, it's going to be short and stocky, and they're going to have like little, I'm saying Courier New or typewriter, but that's not it. But that's what the font looks like, and it's all
and what's really great about all of our mediums is sometimes you can create something on your own. And the one thing, like I remember Carrie, when Carrie came out, Stephen King's novel, and how it had newspaper articles in it, and it was written in this bizarre style that I just love that he created that. It's one of my favorite novels, by the way.
But I mean, that comes back to your rule, right? Because your rule about learning your conventions of your field, it doesn't mean that you can't break them. You just have to know them before you break them.
That's right. That's right.
And also
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Sydney.
It helps, like for me, writing right now, I have done a lot of research on what a romance novel format looks like. Because, right now I'm just writing with 1-inch margins, like I'm writing a paper in like Comic Sans. And so I will have like a 13-page chapter. But once I format it, kind of sort of with margins and font and size, it ends up being 22 pages. So it also, when you start playing around with formatting, especially if you open up a book in a similar genre to you, and you're like, okay, how many lines, whatever, and you fix that up, it helps you also discipline yourself to be like, okay, I cannot have a 4-page chapter here. I mean, you can, but to have that kind of dichotomy is too much. You don't want to have a 30-page chapter.
Well, I want to hear y'all's rookie mistakes, but I want to say one more thing that I think will help people is I really feel like when someone sends me a script and it is not formatted right, and then I think what you're really not. I don't consider you really an amateur, Sydney, because your material is so great. But I go, it's an amateur. It's an amateur, and it's hard to get past. Look, it really is. I mean, it's hard to get past that to get to. If it could be genius, but if you're having all these misspellings and you're having formatting issues all over the place, you think this person doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and they're certainly not disciplined.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, you know what? You just start judging. You just start judging before you should start judging.
Well, yeah, that's if you're going to present, a body of work, whatever, a piece to a publisher, and you're not even going to do the research as to what they expect your manuscript to look like when you send it in, then like it doesn't matter how good it is if they they look through so much stuff that they're not going to focus on oh, this is great content, but the way it looks and the presentation is horrible. Chunk, next manuscript.
Speaking of presentation, I believe I'm frozen, kids.
Oh my gosh, Nancy,
you know what's really great about it? You know what's great about it? You're frozen as if you're discovering something, Nancy. It's not like a horrible freeze frame like sometimes.
There are some horrible ones, right? And you can see I've kind of made the background look good, but you know what? I'm going to come back, so don't say anything bad about me.
Oh.
No, never, not us.
I'll be back.
Comedy Central roast.
So while we're waiting for Nancy to return, what about you, James? I want to hear, or Cindy, I want to hear y'all's rookie mistakes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think that probably the big one, and I'm thinking back a long time now because I was an avid writer when I was in high school and college, and I think people tend to either because they have a lot of pride or because they have a lot of anxiety, they don't let other people read their work and get the feedback that they need, and so they do their work in a vacuum. And I think doing that, some people can do it, but it's hard to know whether the story is ringing true or whether you're making a series of miscalculations that your reader is going to understand what you're talking about if you don't actually have readers.
Yeah.
So you're saying a rookie mistake is not sharing your work.
Exactly. And it's either because you've mistaken yourself as being better than a rookie or because you have a lot of self-doubt as a rookie,
What do
and
you
I
call
think
that, James? You say imposter syndrome?
imposter syndrome. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people experience that, at different points in their process. But having spent a lot of years working with college students, I worked with a lot of kids who thought that they were that smart. They just didn't need any feedback, and none of them were. No one is
But
that
also,
smart.
it's trying to find the right feedback. Because, in my story, especially when I wrote my very first sex scene, all of my girlfriends were like, please send me the scene. None of them read it. I know they didn't. They can say they did. But then I'll send my work to James and he'll actually give me notes, on not just content, but like, grammar or like my rookie mistakes right now. I can't really say I have a big one yet because I haven't, done that much. I mean, I have papers, but like as far as my writing with the novel, but I pretty much do every little rookie mistake in the book. All of my tense in my first chapter was all over the place. Like I'll say she kissed him, but then she moved she didn't move. She will move the chair or whatever. It's all over the place. Or I will be horrible with thinking about keeping things in real time. Like I was writing a bar scene and I have a waiter coming and taking cups off of the table after he left refills for them. But then he has like a bunch of cups in his hand. And I say he tucks the tray under his arm as if he is able to hold 7 cups in his hand and a tray under his arm instead of putting it on so it's like not continuity, that kind of making sure that it makes sense.
Well, it's also really seeing it, right, Sydney? I mean, it's really, really seeing it in real time. And it's the same issue that I pointed out in our class sometimes where someone goes, may I have I will have a martini with a twist. And then you go, and Sydney, I was like, oh, thank you. And I'm like, are they on tap? I mean,
Oh my God. No, like that's it. Seeing it in real
was this somebody else's? That you just got from
grab off the table and put on. But like I will find myself stuttering and struggling to write a description of something unless I have started, and James taught me this, finding a picture or even drawing out an outline of a room as if you're an architect. And then if you see it, then you're able to write it versus, I was writing a bathroom scene and I was like the arm wires in one corner and the showers in the other. But then I said she turns to her left so if you don't see it, if you don't have a clear visual in your mind, then your world doesn't make sense, what you're writing.
Yes. You have to see it if we're going to see it.
Yes.
It's the same thing with actors. If you while you're performing, if you're not seeing where you are, I'm not seeing it.
So, I love the idea of drawing it out, James. That's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have like little papers with like little outlines of bathrooms and
it's storyboarding, really,
exactly.
isn't it? Okay.
He's got a real high IQ, Nancy. James, very, very smart.
I believe it.
Oh yeah.
My rookie mistakes.
Yes.
This is, I either made a lot or I made none. Okay.
Are you going to play us a song on that piano?
Sing.
No.
I thought she was going to go into a musical now.
No.
My mistake.
The art of novel writing, the elements of expression, technique in fiction, writing the romantic comedy. On writing well, maybe you should write a book. Sid Feld's screenplay, good scripts, bad scripts. Producer, writing treatments that sell, Save the Cat, writing dialogue, television and screen. The novel, language, and narrative. Writing the romantic, I've got 2 writing the romantic comedies, Story Sense, and then Robert McKee, winner International Moving Image Book Award. Well, the way I look at it, all of these people at least wrote a book.
Those.
Well, look
at this.
I would say stop reading, Nancy J, and start writing.
Oh, yes.
No, but any of these, honestly, I haven't read. I mean, I haven't really looked through most of these. Are these any good? Is there ever, is it a rookie mistake to try to have somebody tell you how to write?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Well, you know that.
Well, James, I have strong opinions about that, so I'd like to hear yours first.
So I have strong opinions too, and I have a strong yes and no opinion. I think if you're going to look at a book like that as prescriptive and as giving you a method that is the method for writing, then I think it's a bad idea because you constrict yourself. And you're listening to somebody who may or may not have been able to write themselves out of a hole in the ground.
Right.
On the other hand, if you look at those books as sources of inspiration for tips and techniques, especially for like getting yourself out of a writer's block or something like that, I might pull one of these books off the shelf. I have probably some of the similar books, writing the memoir, et cetera, et cetera. I don't write my memoir like that person says to, but she might have a chapter that has an interesting technique for helping recall. And I might be able to use that in the moment, because so much of as people hear about my story a little bit, they'll see why my memory is rather, I have trauma memory. I don't remember things well. So there are techniques in these books that tell you how to recall things. And I think it can be very helpful in those moments where I'm stuck. But
I love that. I love that, James, because Nancy and Sydney actually study with me acting. And what do I say? I say I don't believe in any technique. I just believe in whatever works for you. So I have studied with a lot of acting coaches in my day. I have read Sid Field's screenplay, and ultimately you have to find your voice, because if you don't find your voice, you're not going to be the next Stephen King. You're not going to be fill in the blank. You're not going to be. I mean, look at Eudora Welty back way back, when Eudora and I were going to high school together.
Which class did she teach of yours?
She was one grade behind me.
Okay.
But you know what I'm saying. It's like I just love reading other people's work.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a better education than reading a how-to book.
Yeah, like for me with writing the romance novel, I haven't read any books. I think it's also might be a generational thing. I've Googled plenty, but I haven't checked a book out or went to Barnes and Noble. But I have read probably a million romance novels in my whole life. So I have like the setup and the tropes and the genre. So for me, writing my romance novel right now, my stops and starts have nothing to do with how do I start it or where do I go. It's more about the little details in there. And that's why I've been starting to look outside of writing for information. Like when I was character building, I know it's a little cheesy, but whenever I was character building, I went to horoscopes and I did research on that to find these personality types as well as predetermined people and characteristics that I feel like, okay, I like, looking at the whole outline of a Leo, like that sounds a lot like one of my characters. That's where I'm going for. And so it helped me put things together. Also, I did research on psychology and some things in the mental health or medical field that educates you with like building the story. Because that's what we're doing. We're telling a story.
Well, building the story and building the character. I love what you just said. I mean, how are you going to write a schizophrenic if you don't understand it? If you don't understand the psychology, and people do that all the time.
Yeah.
They say, I said, well, what mental illness do they have? Well, they're crazy. Well, I'm crazy too, but get specific with me.
But maybe it's easier these days to write what you don't know because it's so easy to research. It's not like having to go to the library or getting out the Encyclopedia Britannica or something. Now, I mean, Sydney, you didn't never have to do that. I mean, we can find almost anything.
Yeah. My friend has been wanting to write a romance novel as long as I have, and we had that in common. And she will normally immediately go to a book to read about it. But for me, what I love about the internet, I mean, I love to read, don't get me wrong, but what I love about the internet is that you can find so many opinions on certain methods or certain ways to start and ways to keep going that might work for you more so than the data and the research stuff and the things that go into a book. Because for me, I was like, it was daunting to start this book because I was like, I have to have an outline. I have to have every single thing in its place and then just fill in the cracks. That didn't work for me. But that's pretty much what every single You know that popular thing, the masterclass stuff that
Mhm.
everybody's doing? I
Right.
looked at that, and it just pretty much broke down what's probably in 90% of your books, Nancy. Outline, the outline, the whatever. Uh,
But but James, like your novel that you're writing right now, unnamed still, I think, but it's so
mhm.
brilliant, and the psychology of those characters is so intense, and it never rings false to me. So I'm really I think understanding the psychology of your characters is so very important, because otherwise they cannot be motivated to do what you possibly need them to do, and
Right.
possibly they won't do if you don't understand the psychology. Does that make sense? And so I just want to know from James, how did you I mean, I know that, you knew some of these people, but I don't you didn't know their childhood, and I want to know how you scratch deep into their psychology to give us those amazing characters.
Yeah, it's there was a lot of reverse engineering, just sort of sitting down and trying to say, what were the building blocks that could bring a person to where I met them, right? So,
Mm.
and I did, at a certain point, I knew some of the characters, and I knew what their views of the other people were, and that helped because I could kind of triangulate in on the past, because one person would be talking about their past and it would kind of be a rosy view. But then hearing from my grandmother how she felt about her sister would allow me to kind of be like, what would make them see that differently? What could they both have experienced that would send them off in such very different directions? That, and I have a copy of the DSM-5 diagnostics manual on my desk over here. So absolutely getting into the psychology, and for me, I liked what Sydney said about the astrology, right? If I have people who practice folk magic in some of my books and stories, and a caricature of them would be to say, oh, astrology and all of this, but in reality, they're sort of pseudoscientific. They're based on empirical studies. They're smart people. They're and so instead of going for the caricature, you have to go for the deeper end of the pool.
Yeah.
Well, also, you can't judge them.
Right.
You cannot. That is one of the worst things that I've ever seen with amateur writers, is they start judging their characters
Right.
and making a judgment as the author, and I see them preaching, so
Yes.
I see the author rather than the character.
Hmm.
One thing that James has to do that I don't really have to struggle so much with my book is that, because mine's in first person, his is in third person, and so you don't get to have that inner dialogue of a character to get to know them. So he has to reveal his much more so through action as well as dialogue, and so that's one rookie mistake that I've been trying to learn is the telling. Whenever you write a character, you're not so much saying they feel or I feel or she feels. You use action words.
Mm.
You dive a little bit deeper. I have the thesaurus on my bookmark. I constantly have it open because I can't use the word feel or just 70 times in one chapter, because it's lazy. Because
Right.
we don't always feel angry. I rarely ever feel angry as a human being. I've felt pissed, I've felt frustrated, I've felt exhausted. So using the words like that, or digging a little bit deeper into a character's psychosis or a character's emotional depth,
Mhm.
also helps with your writing. 'Cause you
Well,
can,
it also helps to have a good editor, because I mean,
Mhm.
I use James as well. James is so great,
Yeah.
and he just changes, because you could just say he said so many times.
Well,
Yeah.
now I know why he's so busy and he can't edit me. I thought it
But
was personal. I thought it was personal. It's okay.
I wanted to ask you, because I love you're doing something that none of us are doing. You're really telling your story from your POV, and
Point of
so
view.
what's that?
Everybody knows point of POV. Okay.
Aren't you?
No, yes. Oh, yes. But I just want to make sure a lot of people don't know what POV is. I mean, it's these acronyms. I have a hard time with it.
Screen to pop up.
I have a hard time with them sometimes. So
Google it. Google it.
Just turn images and videos off.
That's right. No, but anyway, I'm sorry. So
But what I find fascinating about yours every now and then is I'm like thinking, did she fill in that blank, or did she create that in the what her mother felt, or did her mother share that, or is it a combination of both?
well, I mean, you create what you remember. If you're writing a memoir, I mean, this is how I remember it. And I mean, James, you don't have anyone to correct you. None of us do when you think about it. Or I don't have anyone left. I have some people I could ask, but we weren't either all there. But everyone remembers something differently.
Hmm.
That's why every person who witnesses something is going to have a different story about it.
That's right. That's
cool. So mine may not be my words and my remembrances may not be exactly how they happened, but it's how I remember them.
Because with you, Nancy, just like what Dad was saying, finding your voice as a writer, because you do come from a very journalistic, do the research, what are the facts? And so when you're writing, it's not always going to be lovey-dovey emotional language. You're going to, but because you, like with your father and writing about you just reporting the fact that he lifted a glass a certain way or the way he drank, and reporting on certain people's tics and the way that they behaved or where they responded to something, that's your personal way to build character. Instead of thinking or trying to elaborate on something, you just took from real life. And we don't give real life enough credit. I feel like sometimes real life can be very interesting.
But then we read yours, Sydney, and Dell's and James, and you're like, wait a minute, it's fact stranger than fiction, or is this? I mean, where is the truth? I mean,
well, where is the truth? And then and Sydney, I ran out of family to write about, so then I had to start using my imagination. I pissed them all off, and the ones that I haven't written about, I'm scared of. So
But I think that point about Nancy brings us back to what we were talking about in a past episode, which is, it's a different way of looking at that adage of don't let facts get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
Because I could be totally stymied, and Nancy could be totally stymied by the fact that we don't know what the truth is about how these people were feeling or what happened. But the story isn't the facts. The story is our experience of them, or the bigger truth that ties it all together that we're uncovering or revealing, which may or may not be factual. And we can get tied up in trying to be faithful to the facts and thus miss the greatest story.
Oh my gosh, I need I see James has a drink. Sydney, you've been drinking. You had a Starbucks, Dell, didn't you?
It's January I don't know when you're watching this, but I'm trying to do dry January. It's working so far, but
I'm wondering I don't know.
Should I implementing on Bridgerton? That's what he's doing instead of drinking.
I don't know. Is it time for me to go get a drink and we'll come back and do some other stuff?
Yeah. If you need something to hold you over, Nancy.
Well, I know.
Life
and then we regroup and talk about something else. Does that sound good?
Let's do that. What do you think, James? What do you want to talk about?
Well, what do we want to talk about? I think, just getting into the truth like we did just for a second there at the end. I've been anxious to talk to you guys about our mission statement a little bit and talk about what we mean when we talk about scratching deeper.
Ooh, you are the philosopher. I want to hear that.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
To kind of recap everything we've talked about, I think the big word that will help you or prevent you from making rookie mistakes is just doing your homework and doing the research. Whether it's research on how to write a certain word, like to the base point of grammar, all the way to doing research on a medical condition that one of your characters has. Or
spell check. Spell check isn't that hard either.
Spoiled with spell check and with grammar check built into our computers. That I have spelt many a word wrong when I'm writing. But if you just do your research on anything that you want to write about, and already you can tell the story without even having to write it.
Okay.
Boom. Mind blown.
All right.
Okay.
Until next time.
See you.
See
Bye,
you guys.
guys.